wow, we're all back together.
Bless.
So the season, so we've got the season 2 trio as well.
Just before you begin,
Yeah.
I didn't jump in the water. That was a stunt double. So I never got radiated or anything.
Glad to hear that. Speaking of, John, was it freezing for you and Robin when you were wearing those city costumes? Filming in
Actually,
Slade.
I don't remember if it was cold. It was cold, but I don't remember that much.
Yeah.
I remember it was cold when we came out of the city and Kerry picked us out of the water. That was cold.
Oh.
That was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could just mention Norwich, that final scene at the end. I remember it being a nuclear power station because I was terrified at the time. I thought it was a nuclear power station. And they said, oh, don't worry, there's a guy going around with a Geiger count. I was like, bloody hell, you know. They say it's safe, you know. And anyway, we got on with it. But I remember do you remember, John, we had to wear those. We had those body warmers and stuff, you know, the heating things that you put in belts inside the costumes. And that very last scene, just before you go into the water and stuff, I remember that it was snowing.
Yes.
Very lightly.
Yes, it was.
And they said, oh, the camera won't see it, it'll be fine. I think, this is freezing, our tits off. But we did have the warmers in there, so we were all right.
And you all got to go abroad, didn't you, to Switzerland for season 2? What was that like?
Yes.
For me that was just incredible because it was my first job, straight pretty much out of drama school, and I remember going back to my mum and dad in Liverpool and saying, I'm going to Switzerland. And it was a long, even though Lisa and I were only in a couple of episodes, it was a long job. And because I think we were used at the beginning and then in the middle and then at the end, and we were on retainers, which was fantastic. I thought this was what it was going to be like to be an actress. we flew out to this fantastic hotel in Switzerland. I think it was something Riviera or whatever. It was just amazing. Yes.
Beau Rivage.
Beau Rivage. Well done,
famous?
John. Yes. Beau Rivage. I remember because it had RBs as well on the carpets. And I thought, this is why Richard's chosen this hotel. It's his hotel. But that was just fantastic for a young actor to have this opportunity. It was a fantastic job.
Excellent.
You'll also be reassured, all of you licence payers, to know that the BBC doesn't skint on spending lavish amounts of money on sending you all to hotels which have spongy walls and swimming. It was the most amazing place, and apparently John's just telling me it's well known this in the hotel world as this place. So it's probably the best hotel I've ever stayed in. And I remember there being a little bit of some sort of slight outrage at the end of the evening because everybody wouldn't get out of the swimming pool. Do you remember that?
Yes, the swimming pool.
Yes, that's it.
Yes. Less said about that, the better.
Yes, that's
I have no memory of the swimming pool.
Actually, I think when it came for me to be the Switzerland stuff, I didn't go into Switzerland. It was in North Wales, but
You got to enjoy slate quarries and typical Doctor Who type locations then.
no, except the slate lines definitely.
But I think what was wonderful about the episodes we shot in Switzerland was the reality that it gives you, because you don't have to create any sets, and you see this wonderful sort of very typical Swiss church steeple in the town that was picked, and it was a beautiful town on the hill, and the wood houses, cabins, whatever they call them, chalets, they were just fabulous. And the mind does not need any more imagination than to see a visual image and immediately you're there.
Yeah.
And so the pertinence it lent to the storyline I thought was wonderful, especially the River Toon we were on. Going from Liverpool as well, you've seen the River Mersey, but you never see the bottom. And this you can see right down. It was so clear,
So you all had a really good time then filming this and fond memories.
Yeah, I think it was also it being the second series. for myself, I'd grown up a bit too. I think it made a lot of difference having the year between. I suddenly thought to myself, hang on a minute, this is actually really good fun. Like being with, and obviously we were good friends by then as well. We'd settled all that, and so it was really nice to see everyone again. And that was the Switzerland bit was a real peak. In fact, I loved those bits we did, and like you were saying, the bits of rescuing you in that sort of ruin as well. Do you remember when you'd come out of the city and we had to fish you out of the river? And that's really vivid in my mind as well. I enjoyed
the house we were in and where we were filming. It was like this demolished demolition building, but it was kind of like correct act.
We whoever, I can't remember the name of the location.
It was the River Wye, was it?
Yeah, the guy that found there's so many great locations, weren't there, that we were out like waiting for some beautiful places outside.
And I think the other thing as well about that was. When you look back at it, I don't remember all the locations, but I can see when we shot. I can remember what we were talking about off camera, and I think to your point as well that friendship that we created. I definitely see that we got better as actors. I know I was terrible in the first series, but I got a little bit better in the second series. But Kerry and Jim and Robin, Elizabeth, Lisa, everyone else was just like, wow, over and above. And I think that maturity was based on the experience we'd had doing the first series. We were all much more prepared to analyse the script and sort of, we were also in the motion, As you know, when you film, sometimes the first series, I remember a lot of times we're just sitting in a little porta cabin because it was raining. We get out there, we get ready, we block the scene, then it starts raining, we go back in. And those were the days where you think, oh my God, not again, but okay. And then we were playing cards or talking or whatever. But in the second series, it was much more fluid. And I think we managed to get shots done a lot quicker. And then the games was actually in the White City, outside of Manchester.
Yes, outside Manchester. It's gone now. You were the last people there to do any sports before it got demolished.
I remember that I was supposed to be winning this race, and they had these, I think they were kids from the local athletics club or something, or from the local school. And they said to me, look, you just do it at your normal pace and we'll get them to slow down. So it had to look like I was like, and I remember because I'd seen Chariots of Fire and I thought, okay, well, I'll just do like Chariots of Fire. And then I think there was a bit in also in Chariots of Fire where he's sort of jumping up and down. And I just remember, Chariots of Fire and Chariots of Fire. And I sort of running around, and there was these kids that they could have easily beaten. but it was really, I had a fantastic time on this series, I have to say, and I'm so grateful for having been involved in it. And when I first went for the casting, I'd read the book when I was a kid, actually, so I'm a little bit older than these guys, and I read it in the 60s when the book first came out, The White Mountains, so I knew the story. And when I came in for the audition, I was like, I know this story, I know about the tripods, I know about the White Mountains. And then I saw in the audition, at the corner of my eye, I saw this book, and it had these guys on the front of the book, the little penguin book or whatever it was. I was like, God, it's a TV series, the whole series. And I think I had four recalls, and it was quite a few. And I remember coming back and I had to do a scene with John and stuff when I first met John. And I just thought it was great. I was nervous. But this guy was so natural, and because he'd already done the series, I suppose, he just seemed so at home with the whole thing. He made me feel at home, and I'm totally grateful for having done it. So thank you very much, Richard. Everyone else.
How easy did you find fitting in with the older guys? Well, the earlier season one guys.
The younger guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to put it.
It was good. It was good. I kind of, because I was a little bit older. I was saying this. I was actually, supposed to be about 17 or 18 something. I was 26 when we did this, and I was playing this young guy, and I'd always played downs and act. Something it's kind of unspoken, but in those days actors would play people younger than them. And so I kind of felt. I thought they were a little bit goofy, like goofing around in various ways and everything. But I remember feeling that as... No, that's say goofy, I mean, just like you do when you're younger, you're having good times. But I remember feeling that I tried to use it for Fritz, really, because Fritz was supposed to be slightly a bit more sort of together, wasn't he? So I kind of felt that it helped me with the character a little bit. I mean, I didn't mean to be arrogant, but I just kind of thought I'm a bit older. So.
I was a bit older. I was 22, but it was my first job out of drama school. And in those days, I don't know if it's changed, but they never taught you about television in drama school. It was just about Shakespeare. So, I didn't know anything about hitting a mark or, being the eye lines or really basic stuff. So I was quite nervous, but these younger guys just were so kind and I felt very straight away, and especially with people like Lisa, people who'd come from a different route into the profession. For me, that was quite eye-opening to see that there's a whole world beyond that route of drama school theatre, and TV is all things to everyone, and that was really fantastic.
And you had some fun scenes with Lisa and John and Ceri, some quite wacky hijinks, I'll sum it up as. Or maybe a bit.
I'll let you
Oh,
talk
really?
about
Thank you so much. How charming. You mean the naked lingerie on the second floor, bedroom?
Not naked.
We have to have lunch first, right?
Suspenders, not naked.
Close. It was shocking. Let's put it like that. For a television show for children, I think it was shocking. But I think when we were doing it, I was like, it's a bit weird. Why would this happen? I don't understand it. But, dude, you're 19. Go with it. And then going underneath Lisa's dress, trying to escape Gertz. That was like, okay, this is really weird. You may not have noticed, but Lisa is a charming young lady of limited vertical abilities. My polite way of saying she's rather short, but full of power. And I'm not exactly, a bit taller than her, so to try and get down was rather. So yeah, that was a bit. I think we were also precocious as well at that time, that we just got on with it.
We just got on with it,
yes.
Yes.
But it was fun. It was fun, and I think then the long jump and the boxing, and we're not particularly known for our athleticism, I would suggest. I think to Robin's point. But I tried to do some boxing in one of the local boxing clubs where I lived in Liverpool, and I was really great on the bag. I was hitting that bag, but then you get in the ring and there's a guy who wants to hit you doing this, and I'm like, wait, hang on a minute. So, but it was wonderful, and the guys who I was boxing with were stuntmen, and they were very kind, very gracious, and I thought one of the things I liked about those scenes was the way that it was shot was really good, because when you see Beanpole's face, Kerry's face, and Will's kind of like, you've never seen him do this before, right? That sort of hits you, and Ceri was really good at that bit, so I'm like, okay, now we have to do it. And that's what's coming. And then right at when we finished and Will has won, I love the scene where we're in the changing rooms. And Ceri goes, bosh, well done, Will, and he hits him. And I remember talking about it with Chris Barry, and Chris said, you've been hit quite a lot. So maybe you should have a slightly different reaction and go, oh, okay, yeah. Oh, right, yes, very good point, thank you. Wonderful director, Chris. Said it in such a charming way. He didn't say, do this. He just said, you've been hit quite a lot. So when he taps you, you should make the reaction as though it's still sore. Mm. And it was those little things I remember, because those are the gems that, as a young aspiring actor, you don't really have a director who has the time and patience to suggest it in that way. That he knows when he says it like that, I'm going to take it. Yes. It was wonderful of him, really.
That's really good. That's really good to hear. It was very encouraging. Mm-hmm. Ceri, I really liked when you were doing that bit that John's talking about, where you were really getting into because your character just lost your game, so you were out. But when you see Beanpole just suddenly come on, Will, and he's pushing guards away and stuff, you're like, it hits you as a viewer. they've got to get in this. This is Last Chance Saloon. Will's got to get in. So was that going into your thinking when you're doing that? This is, really important.
We all have a shadow, don't we? I decided to channel my inner Viking. Yeah. So that was the general idea. And actually I was... Yes, an 11 stone, 6'3" Viking. I mean, the idea.
So carried.
Yeah, the idea of doing a long jump as well. It was just absolutely absurd. I would have said that I was as far away from an athlete as it was possible to get. Yeah, so I think I'm probably managed to long jump about 3 feet or something in the thing. But yeah, I remember that boxing. I was really impressed actually because you were getting didn't you have boxing?
Yeah.
Sort of tutorials, didn't you, and everything at that time?
Yeah. Stuart Cosgrove's.
Yes, yeah. But I think the thing was that I'd had boxing lessons. I'd been to the gym for like 3 or 4 weeks, like every day, and I really didn't like boxing. I'm not a violent person in any way. I don't like violence.
Liar.
Joking. I'm not a violent person, but I found on the set as well, the stunt guys were really good because they were also making suggestions based on where the camera was. They knew the choreography, and we'd never really done a fight scene per se. And that was one of the first things that surprised me is they knew where the camera was, where the angle was to put the punch that was not going to hit me. And I think there was one time I actually was doing it and I hit the stuntman by mistake, and you don't mean to, and your initial reaction, I'm so sorry, but you're acting, so you've got to carry on, and he just took it. And I said at the end of when we cut, at the end of the text, are you okay? Sorry, dude, carry on. All good. Hit me if you want,
Well, John, as Will, you managed to capture Will's inner fire very well. I thought there were moments where you're just looking and you're like, Will looks like he wants to punch someone right now. I thought you got that very well.
In the first book, Sam, you described Will as a pugnacious young man.
Yes, and I thought you did really well with that.
I think I'm not necessarily pugnacious, loud, gregarious, full of energy, out there. That's me as a person, But Will's pugnacious is that he just is a rebel. He's a revolutionary. And I think that was the thing between Henry and Will, was that Will is out there and Henry's kind of like, he has no one else. And so the bouncing off each other I thought was great. And then when Ceri comes into it and John Paul comes into it, you can see that he's the one who's kind of like the separator. So the balance of the three, the ménage à trois, if you like, was really formidable. It was a great piece of writing, actually, from Sam to do that. It was really
Yeah.
I have to say it's really interesting, John, hearing your thoughts about what you were doing when you were performing as well, because I didn't have any of these subtleties, as you could probably tell. I didn't have any of these subtle ideas going on at all. I was just thinking, right, I'm pretending to be in this particular place. It's really interesting to hear what you're saying.
That's because he's being modest. Some of us have natural talent, some of us have to try and work hard. But then when you go into the city, so I think listening to Bob's explanations about the technicalities of the city, yes, I knew quite well what they were when we were in the studio, and we were in the studio a long time. I specifically remember TC1 where the whole of the floor had been covered with this almost like reflective silver foil, but it was like a plastic refractive silver foil. And this was to make sure that there was so many challenges with the lights in TC1 coming down, and this is where Will meets the Cognos. And the reason I'm mentioning it is, for me, that was very technically challenging because the sound that it made when you walked on it was like crinkling paper. I don't know if you remember that. And so I was trying to walk as softly as one can whilst delivering dialogue. And I think when we were there, you don't actually see anything on the floor, and it comes on after. But it was wonderful how they did it. They had me walking almost like 50 feet, because it's the biggest soundstage, television studio in the BBC. And I remember we walked from one corner all the way to the other side as the hypotenuse, because it was the longest way. And Bob really thought about that and said, I want to have him walk all the way across. And I remember that specifically because it was quite technical to make sure that the camera angles didn't get any reflections from the floor of the ceiling lights and the lamps. And we did it quite a few times, and it was wonderful to watch because you get this long tracking shot where he's actually walking. You know, you can tell when someone's pretending to walk. But he was actually getting me to do it all the way across. And those technicalities for the studio we hadn't done before. And I thought they were wonderful as well. You know, even at the age of, ripe old age of 19, I was quite enamored by the way that the capabilities of the people we were working with, the film crew, the technicians, the camera guys, everyone was really talented, you know. And even as a young man, I was kind of in awe at the whole complex of things. But when they put it together and they say action, you know, turn over, or, you know, we're rolling or we're running, action, and you see them all go static and they're watching you, you have to raise the level of your game, because these people are putting their hearts and souls into their craft, you know.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you learned a lot as well from the people you worked with, the directors and that. And they sounded very generous in giving you those moments to learn.
You know, everyone also were just so friendly, and it was really. You were really made to feel at home. It was on set. It was really nice like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody was great.
There was also, do you remember when we'd finished in the city and we came out and we were in the circus? I don't know if you'll remember.
I was going to mention the circus. That's a classic. But
there was this moment where we have to put on this makeup, and we were supposed to put on clown makeup. And I remember we were talking about it, like, dude, this doesn't sound right, because if he's so screwed up after leaving the city, and he's seen people being killed and this, that and the other, wouldn't it kind of like psychologically affect you? And I remember we had the conversation and we talked with the makeup ladies, who were ever so supportive, especially Sally was great as well. No, Helen, right? Yeah. And so we came up with the idea to do a kind of, I would suggest it's like a Picasso, where it's sort of like the shadow effect, and it's kind of like that's what's going through the mind. And we took it to Chris, and we said, Chris, look, we really think like this, and you know, he's psychologically disturbed, and maybe we need to portray this by using the makeup in it. And Chris just looked at us and went, fine, okay, let's try it. I was like, okay, great. Little did I know that Chris was actually thinking this isn't going to work, you know, because I remember after he said, I didn't think it would work, but yeah, it worked. It's okay. And we were determined to sell it, and it was a lovely moment, because I really felt, finally, we're getting to the point where we're suggesting things that are actually kind of okay.
Yeah.
You know?
And that scene as well, it was kind of, there was a darkness in that circus scene, because of course they were sort of I remember that well, and because they were being enslaved kind of thing by the guy, and the whole thing was trying to escape.
Yeah.
But it was also touching on genuine circus performers as well, and that, remember there was a few, was there a few acrobats that we met?
Oh yeah, there were people from the circus.
Stilts.
We got to learn how to juggle, walk on stilts. It was, if I run out of money, I just go to the car park and I'll start juggling, people give me money. You know.
and I had my first experience of baldness then as well. I think I was given a bald wig with orange hair. I've been trying to catch that look ever since.
And so it would have ended with you recruiting new free men as well, but then it seemed like it was all for nothing. Which brings us to the end of this panel, sadly.
Yes.
Enjoyed talking to you. Do you have any final thoughts, guys?
Richard's got a question.
Richard.
Just wanted to assure you, chap, the Norway is not.
Yeah, sorry. Good story. I just want to say about directing, and no disrespect to Chris Barry, because I really like working with him as well, but I have to say that for an actor, I found that when I worked with Chris Barry, I think I did the first couple with, I remember trying to kind of seek encouragement from him when I was a bit nervous about doing some scenes. And he was just, how was that? And he just went, oh, that's fine. Just sort of carried on. And it seemed matter of fact. I mean, been working a long time and stuff. Obviously, knew what he was doing. But I kind of was waiting for something a bit more, like, oh, that was really good or something, you know. And then when I got to work with Bob was incredibly encouraging. Bob Blackton, very well. And I found that Bob, whenever I kind of felt I'm not quite sure about the scene, you were very, very encouraging, so thank you very much.